For 25 years. My life's purpose was my daughter, Isabella. I poured nearly $1 million into her future, culminating in a 6-figure wedding. So when she looked me in the eye and said, "You're not invited. Please leave," she didn't just break my heart. She handed me a signed permission slip to teach her the most brutal lesson of her life. This is a story about a line being crossed. If you believe some lines should never be crossed, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, because you won't want to miss a single detail. There's a memory I keep turning over in my mind. Polished, smooth, like a river stone. It's from when my daughter, Isabella, was 5. I'd brought her to a big job site on a Saturday. A skeleton of steel, reaching for the clouds that would one day be a corporate headquarters. I remember the absurdly large, hard hat wobbling on her head as I lifted her onto my shoulders. She wasn't scared of the height, or the distant scream of power saws. Her small hands just gripped my hair as she pointed up at the massive structure. "Are you building a castle?" Dada, she'd squealed, her voice full of wonder. I remember my laugh. A deep rumble in my chest. Something like that. "Princess, one day, I'll build you a real one." That promise became the blueprint for my life. Every decision, every 16-hour day, every contract won was another brick in the castle I was building for her. When it came time for high school, her mother and I sat at our small kitchen table. The tuition bill for a prestigious private academy laid out between us. It was more than our mortgage. I looked at my wife's worried face, then thought of Isabella's bright mind. That night, I took on a second contract, supervising a night crew. For 2 years, sleep was a luxury I rarely afforded. But when I saw her in that academy uniform, beaming with pride, it felt like the soundest investment I'd ever made. The castle was growing. 25 years of that. 25 years of laying bricks. And tonight, standing at the grand entrance of the Pelican Hill Golf Club, I thought I'd finally finished the job. This place, it wasn't just a venue. It was a statement. As a builder, I noticed things others might miss. I saw the flawless Venetian plaster on the walls, the intricate joinery of the mahogany bar, the sheer weight and perfect balance of the solid oak doors. This was craftsmanship. This was permanence. This was a castle. The air inside was thick with the scent of thousands of Ecuadorian roses. A sweet, heavy perfume that clung to the back of my throat. A string quartet played softly in the corner, their music a gentle murmur beneath the polite laughter of the guests. I watched them for a moment. Men in tailored tuxedos with posture learned at boarding schools. Women draped in silk and diamonds. Their ease and grace, speaking of generations of wealth, they were a different breed from the men I worked with. Men with calloused hands and sun-creased faces. But I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. My hard work had bought my daughter a ticket into this world. I had given her this. In my pocket, my fingers traced the outline of a small, clumsily wrapped box. Inside was my great-grandfather's compass. It was made of heavy brass, warm to the touch. The glass face scratched from a century of use. He'd used it to navigate his way off a boat and into a new life in this country. It was a symbol of our family's journey, a reminder of where we came from and the hard work it took to find our way. It felt like the only gift that truly mattered tonight. And then I saw her, Isabella. She was holding court in a circle of her new friends, laughing, her head tilted back. The $12,000 Vera Wang gown I'd paid for without a second thought clung to her like a second skin. She was breathtaking, a masterpiece of my life's work. Our eyes met across the expanse of marble. and the light in her expression vanished. The brilliant smile didn't just fade. It collapsed. Her posture stiffened. For a terrifying second, she looked at me as if I were a stranger who'd wandered in off the street. I started towards her, weaving through clusters of guests. A few of them turned as I passed, their eyes giving me a quick, professional appraisal before dismissing me. I felt a familiar prickle of insecurity. My suit was custom-made, the best I'd ever owned. But on me, it felt like a costume. On them, it was just what they wore on a Saturday. Isabella broke away from her friends and intercepted me. Her movements sharp, almost frantic. She grabbed my arm, her manicured fingers digging into my bicep with surprising strength. "Dad," she said, her voice a strained, low hiss. "What are you doing?" The question was so bizarre it threw me off balance. "What do I mean? I'm here for my daughter's wedding. Is everything all right?" "Honey, you look stressed." I held up the small gift. "I have something for you." She didn't even look at the box. Her eyes were wide, darting around the room as if she was afraid of being seen with me. She pulled me behind a ridiculously large floral arrangement that probably cost more than my first car. "I'm sorry," she said, and the words were like ice chips. "You can't be here. You're not invited. You need to leave. Now." My brain simply refused to process the words. I let out a short, hollow laugh. "Not invited, Isabella. This has to be some kind of weird wedding prank Carter put you up to. It's not funny. It's not a joke." As if summoned, Carter appeared at her side. He looked like he'd been born in his tuxedo. He slid a protective arm around Isabella and offered me a smile so smooth and polished I could see my own confused reflection in it. It was a smile of pure condescension. "Homework," he said. "Not Mr. H. Not Sir. Just my name." Spoken as if we were equals, though his tone made it clear we were anything but. "There's been a bit of a communication breakdown. This is a very exclusive event for our inner circle. We're planning a more casual backyard barbecue for your side of the family in a few weeks." Your side of the family. He delivered the line with such casual cruelty, as if he were sorting laundry into whites and colors. I looked at my daughter, pleading with my eyes for her to deny it, to laugh it off, to tell me this was all a nightmare. She just stared back, her face a mask of cold resolve. My own voice felt like gravel in my throat. A communication breakdown. I'm the one who signed the checks. The check for this hall, the check for that dress, the check for the champagne you're all drinking. I paid for every last piece of this. Inner circle. Isabella flinched as if I'd slapped her. She leaned in so close I could smell her expensive perfume. Her whisper was a dagger meant only for my heart. "This isn't about the money. Dad." She took a breath, and her eyes, the same eyes I'd taught to read, were filled with a stranger's pity. You just don't fit in with these people. You're embarrassing me." The world went silent. The music from the string quartet, the gentle hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, it all faded into a dull, roaring buzz inside my head. Embarrassing her. The two words echoed in the sudden, vast emptiness she had just carved out of my soul. In that moment, 25 years of sacrifice, of missed sleep and aching muscles, of pride and unconditional love, all curdled into shame. I wasn't her father. I was just a walking, talking checkbook. And now that my services were rendered, I was a liability. I didn't fight. I didn't yell. The anger hadn't hit me yet. There was only a profound, Arctic coldness spreading through my chest. The fight had gone out of me, replaced by a terrible, devastating clarity. I looked past her at Carter's family. They were watching, not with overt malice, but with a kind of detached, clinical interest, like scientists observing a specimen. Without a word, I pulled my arm from her grasp. I turned to a nearby table, where waiters had arranged champagne flutes in a perfect pyramid. With a steady hand, I placed the small and wrapped box on the crisp white linen. My great-grandfather's compass, a relic of a man who built a life from nothing, now abandoned in a palace built on pretense. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't rush. My steps were heavy, measured. The sound of my leather-soled boots on the imported Italian marble was loud in the sudden silence of my world. Click, clack, click, clack. The sound of a working man leaving a world he had built but was never meant to inhabit. I pushed through the heavy doors, and the cool night air was a shock to my system. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The first one I felt I'd taken in 10 minutes. The valet started towards me, but I just shook my head and kept walking towards the parking lot. The gravel crunching under my feet. My truck, my Ford F-150 King Ranch, was parked under a lone light post. It looked sturdy, honest. It looked like me. I climbed inside. The familiar smell of worn leather, a small comfort. For a long time, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. My heart felt like a block of ice in my chest. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Affrontique. Insistent vibration. I pulled it out. The lock screen lit up, showing a picture of Isabella and me on the day she graduated from college. She was in her cap and gown, arms slung around my neck, grinning from ear to ear. I was looking at her with an expression of such unguarded, fatherly adoration that it made my stomach turn. We looked so happy. It was a perfect picture of a perfect lie. Something inside me shifted then. The ice in my chest didn't melt, it hardened, sharpening to a fine point. The grief was still there. A massive, gaping wound. But now, something else was crystallizing around it, a cold, methodical calm. It was the calm of a man who has just lost everything, and in doing so, has become free of all consequence. My thumb moved automatically, swiping across the image of her smiling face. I opened my contacts list. I scrolled past Isabella, past the names of my site managers and my oldest friends. My finger stopped on a name saved under a simple, powerful title, a number I paid a small fortune every year for the privilege of using. The screen glowed in the dark cab of my truck. The contact name read, American Express Centurion, 24/7, Concierge. My thumb hovered over the glowing screen. The name, a gateway to a world of exclusive service. For a moment, the face of that 5-year-old girl in a hard hat flashed in my mind. The promise I'd made, a castle. Then, the memory was shoved aside by the cold, dismissive look in the eyes of the woman she had become. The castle had been built. She had locked the gates and thrown the master builder out into the mud. I pressed down. The call connected instantly. Centurion Services. This is Anya speaking. How may I assist you this evening? Mr. H. The voice was calm, professional, impossibly serene. It was the voice of a world where problems simply disappeared. My own voice, when it came, sounded foreign in the confines of my truck. It was level, devoid of the tremor that was shaking my hands. Anya. Good evening. I need to report several fraudulent charges on my account and request immediate payment cancellation. Of course, Sia. I'm very sorry to hear that. Can you please provide me with the vendor names and transaction dates? I had the wedding binder in the passenger seat, a monument to my naive enthusiasm. I didn't need it. Every single detail was burned into my memory. First, the Pelican Hill Golf Club. For venue rental and catering services, I gave her the amount, a number so large it felt obscene to say out loud. A number that could have bought a small house in the town where I grew up. There was a quiet clicking of a keyboard on the other end. I see the charge. Sire. It was processed 2 days ago. And you're confirming this was an unauthorized transaction. The terms of the service were not met. I said. The words carefully chosen. The agreement has been fundamentally breached. It was the truth. The agreement was that I was her father. The service was that she was my daughter. That contract was now null and void. Understood. Sire. I am processing the payment reversal now. It may take them a business day to see it, but the funds will be clawed back from their account, effective immediately. Was there anything else? Yes. I said, taking a breath. The event planner. Isabella's dream weddings. A bitter irony. That name. Then the florist. Petals of Paradise. The photographer. Julian Marks. And the band. The Midnight Hour. R. One by one. I listed them out. Each name was a ghost of a happier time. A memory of sitting with Isabella. Her face lit up with excitement as she picked out centerpieces or listened to music samples. Each name I spoke was another brick I was methodically pulling from the castle walls. Anya processed each request with the same unflappable efficiency. She didn't ask for details. The world of the Centurion card was not one of messy explanations. It was one of decisive action. All payment stops have been executed. Mr. H. A full report will be in your email within the hour. Is there anything further I can do for you tonight? No. Anya. That's all. Thank you. You're very welcome. Sire. Have a pleasant evening. The line went dead, leaving a profound silence in its wake. It was done. The financial engine of the wedding had just been shut down, but it wasn't enough. The bank was impersonal. I wanted them to know who was doing this. And why. I scrolled through my recent calls and found the number for the florist. A nice woman named Elena. She had been so passionate about the arrangements. She answered on the second ring. Her voice cheerful. Homework. I was just thinking about you. I hope Isabella loved the cascading orchids on the main table. I thought they were breathtaking. The kindness in her voice was a physical blow. Elena. I said. My voice flatter than before. I'm calling to inform you that the payment for your services has been cancelled. The cheerfulness vanished. What cancelled? Is there a problem with the card? I can take another? The card is fine. I interrupted, not wanting to be cruel, but needing to be clear. The issue is with the bride. The person who ordered the flowers has refused to acknowledge the person who paid for them. Therefore, the contract is void. I'd advise you to retrieve your property from the venue as soon as possible. There was a stunned silence, then a hesitant. I don't understand. You don't have to. Just get your flowers. Elena. I'm sorry you're in the middle of this. I hung up before she could ask any more questions. I repeated the process with the photographer and the band leader. The conversations were short, brutal, and effective. I was planting seeds of chaos, and I knew they would sprout quickly. The drive home was an automaton's journey. I don't remember the traffic or the route. My mind was a maelstrom of memories and raw, searing pain. I unlocked the door to my house. A house that was always too big and too quiet since my wife passed 5 years ago. I'd kept it thinking it would be a hub for family gatherings, for future grandchildren. The silence that greeted me felt mocking. I walked straight to the bar, my boots echoing on the hardwood floors. I didn't bother with a fancy glass. I grabbed a tumbler, sloshed 3 fingers of Blanton's into it, and drank half of it down in one long, burning swallow. The whiskey did nothing to numb the coldness inside me, but it gave my hands something to do. With the glass in hand, I went to my office. I sat in my worn leather chair and fired up my laptop. The screen illuminated my face in the dark room. I bypassed my work files and opened the one folder I treated with more care than any business proposal. It was a single Excel file, named simply Project Isabella. I clicked it open. 25 years of my life loaded onto the screen, neatly organized into columns and rows. It wasn't just a spreadsheet, it was a testament. Line after line of painstaking detail. Tuition for the Oak Hill Preparatory Academy, $32,000 a year. For 4 years. Orthodontics, $7. Wu Bei. A semester abroad in Florence, $18. Ling. Her first car. A safe and reliable Honda. Her second car. A BMW M4 for her 21st birthday because everyone has one. Dad. The down payment on her luxury condo downtown. Her platinum credit card, which I paid off every month without comment. I scrolled through the tabs, each one representing a year of her life. I saw the trips, the designer clothes, the equestrian lessons she abandoned after 2 months. Each number was a decision I had made, a sacrifice I had willingly offered up on the altar of her happiness. And as I looked at the grand total at the bottom of the page, a number well north of $1 million, I felt no pride. I felt only the profound, soul-crushing weight of my own foolishness. I had built her a castle, but I'd forgotten to teach her how to be a queen. I'd given her a kingdom, and she had turned into a tyrant. My hand shook as I reached for my phone. There was only one person I could talk to. My brother. Ben. He picked up before the first ring finished. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said. His voice was grim. He didn't ask what happened. He knew. He'd been warning me for years. In his own gentle way. He'd seen the entitlement growing in Isabella like a weed. While I was busy admiring the flower, she kicked me out. "Ben," I said, the words tasting like ash. From her own wedding. Said I was an embarrassment. Ben was silent for a long moment. I could hear him breathing on the other end. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just said, "You okay, brother?" And I mean, "Are you okay?" "No," I whispered. The admission, a crack in my iron resolve. "No, I'm not. But I'm doing something about it." I told him about the phone calls, about canceling everything. Another pause. Then, "Good." The word was a shot of steel into my spine. "It's about damn time. Homework. You gave that girl the world. It's time she learned it doesn't owe her a living. So what's her move?" As if on cue. My phone, sitting on the desk beside me, lit up with her name. A call. I let it go to voicemail. A second later, a text message appeared. "Dad, the florist is here taking all the flowers. She said you canceled the payment. Is this a joke? Call me." I read it out loud to Ben. He let out a low whistle. The first tremor. It's starting. For the next hour, we just talked. He let me vent. Let me pour out 25 years of buried frustrations and willful blindness. And as my phone continued to light up the dark office with a relentless barrage of calls and texts, Ben was my anchor. The messages grew more frantic. The band is packing up. Carter is freaking out. What is going on? People are starting to leave. You're ruining everything. How could you do this to me on my wedding day? You are the most selfish man I have ever known. Each message was a confirmation. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not once did she apologize. There was no remorse. Only rage that the ATM had suddenly stopped dispensing cash. By the time I hung up with Ben, the coldness inside me had settled into a solid, unshakable resolve. I turned off my phone and finally went to bed, sleeping more soundly than I had in years. The next morning, I woke to the sun streaming through my window. I made coffee, sat on my back porch, and listened to the birds. It felt like the world was holding its breath. I knew the storm hadn't passed. It was just gathering strength. Around 9 a.m., I turned my phone back on. The flood of notifications was overwhelming. But one stood out. A text from Ben. Check Facebook. The war has gone public. I opened the app. It didn't take long to find it. Isabella had posted a long, rambling diatribe. It was accompanied by a professionally taken photo from the wedding before the chaos of her looking wistfully into the distance. A single tear photoshopped onto her cheek. She wrote about her narcissistic father who couldn't stand for one day not to be the center of attention. She claimed I had made unreasonable demands and, when they weren't met, had thrown a monstrous tantrum, sabotaging her perfect day out of pure spite. Carter had commented immediately, "Below, I'm so proud of you for speaking your truth. My love, we will get through this. Some people just can't stand to see others happy." Dozens of their friends, people I'd never met, chimed in with messages of support, calling me a monster, a psychopath, a textbook narcissist. They were building a narrative, painting me as the villain in her fairy tale. I read every word, every comment, and I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel hurt anymore. What I felt was opportunity. They had been foolish. In their haste to control the story, they had taken a private humiliation and made it a public spectacle. They had built a courtroom for the whole world to see and put me on trial. They had no idea that I was about to present my evidence. I didn't reply to her post. Instead, I opened a new one of my own. My fingers moved calmly across the keyboard. My words were simple, direct, and devoid of the melodrama she had used. Isabella, I wrote, I am sorry you feel that way. My actions were a direct response to being told that I was an embarrassment and was not welcome at the wedding I paid for. I have always believed that actions have consequences. For 25 years, my actions have been to provide for you. Yesterday, your actions were to discard me. These are the consequences. For anyone who is confused about my motivations or believes I am a selfish father, I offer this context. My heart was beating a slow, steady rhythm. I opened my cloud storage. I found the file, Project Isabella, XLSX. I changed the sharing permissions. Anyone with the link can view. I copied the link. I went back to my post. My cursor blinked at the end of my text. With a final, steady click, I pasted the link. The address, a long string of characters, appeared below my words. It was a digital key to the last 25 years of my life. It was a bomb. I looked at the blue post button for a long moment. There was no going back from this. This was the point of no return. I clicked it. The click of the mouse was unnervingly quiet in the silent office. It felt anticlimactic. For a moment, nothing happened. My post just sat there on my timeline. A block of text with an unassuming blue hyperlink. I had just dropped a nuclear bomb into the middle of my daughter's curated social life. And the only sound was the gentle whir of my computer's fan. I took a slow sip of my now cold coffee and waited. I knew it wouldn't be silent for long. The first notification chimed less than a minute later. It was a like from my brother. Ben, a silent signal of solidarity. Then another, a cousin from Ohio. Then came the first comment, from one of Isabella's friends. A bridesmaid whose dress I had likely paid for. This is a disgusting and manipulative thing to do to your daughter on what should have been the happiest weekend of her life. You should be ashamed. Another followed quickly. There are two sides to every story. Airing your family's dirty laundry in public is just low. I read the words, but they didn't sting. They were predictable. The first line of defense from soldiers who hadn't yet seen the weapon I had deployed. I didn't reply. I just sat and watched. For about 5 minutes, the comments continued in that vein. I was a monster. A narcissist. A bitter old man. I was everything Isabella had told them I was. And then, a different kind of comment appeared. Wait a minute. Did you guys actually click the link? It was from a name I didn't recognize. A stranger. I'm a molateur. The same person commented again. Holy cow. Page 17. The BMW. Just wow. That was the first crack in the dam. Another stranger commented. I'm on the tab for personal expenses. 3,000. A month allowance for a 4-year-old. I'm a single mom of 2, and I don't clear that much. Unbelievable. Suddenly, the tone of the entire thread began to shift. It was like watching a tide turn in real time. The accusations against me didn't stop, but they were now being drowned out by a rising chorus of disbelief and outrage aimed squarely at Isabella. The down payment on the condo, I can't even afford rent. She never worked a day in her life. Did she? It's all here. This isn't dirty laundry. This is a financial statement. This is proof. My phone began to vibrate on the desk. A low, angry buzz that grew into a continuous tremor. Notifications were flooding in likes. Shares. Comments. Friend requests from total strangers. My post was being shared outside of my immediate circle. Then, outside of our community, it was spreading like a wildfire. And the spreadsheet was the gasoline. By midday, my story had a life of its own. I saw screenshots on Twitter. Someone had started a thread on Reddit. The link was everywhere. The comments were now a raging debate. People were arguing about parenting, entitlement, gratitude. My private pain had become a public case study. Late in the afternoon, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line was aggressive. Cease and desist. Defamation of character. It was from Jonathan Carter. My daughters. Well, I wasn't sure what to call him now. It was from his father, the lawyer. The email was a masterpiece of legalistic intimidation. It accused me of libel, slander, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and invasion of privacy. It threatened immediate legal action if the malicious and misleading post was not removed within the hour. It was full of bluster and rage. The wounded roar of a patriarch whose family's pristine image had just been dragged through the mud. I read the email twice. A year ago, it would have terrified me. Today, it felt like nothing. He was threatening a man who had already lost everything that mattered. What more could he possibly take? I hit reply and typed out a short, simple response. Mr. Carter. Everything in my post and in the linked document is the truth. And I have the receipts to prove it. As you know, truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Your son is a grown man who made his choice. My daughter is a grown woman who made hers. This is the result. Do what you feel you must. Sincerely. Homework, H. I sent it and closed my laptop. There would be no lawsuit. We both knew it. A lawsuit would mean discovery. Subanas. Depositions under oath. It would mean making my spreadsheet a legally binding court exhibit. He wasn't a fool. He was just trying to scare me into silence. But he couldn't comprehend that I no longer had anything to be scared of. An hour later, Ben called. He sounded breathless. You are not going to believe this. I just got off the phone with my buddy, who's a member at Pelican Hill. Jonathan Carter called the club president this morning, screaming his head off. Tried to get your membership revoked. I don't have a membership there. I said flatly. Exactly, Ben laughed. A real, booming laugh. My friend said the president had to calmly explain to him that you were a guest, that the wedding was booked on your Amex, and that as far as the club was concerned, you were the aggrieved party. Then, and you've gotta love this, he told Carter that several other members had called in to express their support for you. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. The wall of social standing the Carters had built around themselves was beginning to crumble. It gets better. Ben continued. Carter's law partners apparently got wind of the whole fiasco. It's a bad look for a family law firm to have their son embroiled in this kind of public mess. Jonathan is apoplectic. He told Carter to fix it or get out. The wedding is off. Homework. For good. The friends who had so righteously defended Isabella on my post began to quietly disappear. I watched as their comments were deleted. One by one. The bridesmaid who had called me disgusting vanished. Carter's own sycophantic comment was scrubbed from the record. They were jumping from the sinking ship, leaving their captain to go down alone. Later that evening, Ben sent me a screenshot. It was from a mutual acquaintance's messaging app. It was a forwarded message from Carter, sent to a group of his groomsmen. Wedding's off. My dad's handling the annulment. Don't contact Isabella. My family is done with her. It's over. That was it. No heartfelt goodbye. No painful confrontation. Just a cold, cowardly text message, cutting her out of his life like a bad investment. I stared at the screenshot, and for the first time, a sliver of pity pierced through my cold resolve. He had been her prize, her ticket to the life she craved, and at the first sign of trouble, he had jettisoned her without a second thought. She had traded her father's unconditional love for his conditional approval, and she had just found out how worthless that currency truly was. I imagined her then, alone in her high-rise condo, the one I paid the down payment on, surrounded by wedding gifts she would now have to return. Her phone, once a source of validation and praise, now likely a torrent of hatred or, worse, a deafening silence. She had walked into her wedding, a queen, surrounded by her court, and in less than 48 hours, I had burned her kingdom to the ground, leaving her alone in the ashes. There was no joy in this victory. It was just a necessary, heartbreaking demolition. The next day, a call came from my wife's sister, my sister-in-law, Martha. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. I cannot believe what you've done. Homework, she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. To humiliate your own daughter like that, in front of the entire world, your wife would be ashamed of you. The mention of my wife was a low blow. "Martha," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Were you there when she called me an embarrassment and kicked me out? Did you see the look on her face when she told me I didn't fit in? She's a young girl. She made a mistake. You're her father. You're supposed to forgive." "I have been forgiving for 25 years. I replied. I forgave the lies, the disrespect, the endless taking without a word of thanks. My forgiveness ran out. This isn't about punishment, Martha. It's about consequences." I hung up the phone. My resolve was hardening into something unbreakable. The story reached its absurd peak that afternoon. The Chekhov's gun I had planted in the spreadsheet finally went off. A local entertainment blogger, someone who must have spent hours combing through the data, found the line item. On the tab for Isabella's 22nd year, nestled between a charge for a trip to Cabo and a payment for her car insurance, was a single entry for $5. Ling. The description: the Astor Finishing School, 6-week modern etiquette and social graces course. It went viral instantly. The irony was too perfect. My daughter, who had paid $5,000 of my dollars to learn manners, had kicked her own father out of her wedding for not being classy enough. The story was no longer just a local drama. It was a meme. People were making jokes, sharing the screenshot with captions like, "Money can't buy class," and "Best $5. 0, her dad ever wasted." It was the ultimate humiliation. A public punchline. After that, a strange quiet fell. The storm of social media passed. The news cycle moved on. I didn't hear from Carter or his family again. For 3 days. I heard nothing from Isabella. A part of me wondered if I ever would. I had so thoroughly dismantled her world. I wasn't sure what was even left. Then, on the 4th evening, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, with a blocked caller ID. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew who it was. I let it ring 4 times, my hand hovering over the screen. Then, I took a deep breath and answered. I didn't say anything. For a long moment, there was only static, and the sound of someone trying and failing to control their breathing on the other end. Finally, a voice came through. It was small, shattered, and almost unrecognizable as my daughter's. It was the sound of a life that had completely unraveled. "Dad," she whispered, and the word was followed by a ragged, "Despérate sob." The sob on the other end of the line was a raw, wounded sound. It wasn't the performative, self-pitying cry I had seen glimpses of over the years when a request was denied or a plan went awry. This was different. This was the sound of a complete and total shattering. It was the sound of someone who had been stripped of everything: pride, friends, future, identity, and was left with nothing but the jagged edges of their own mistakes. I didn't speak. I just stood in the quiet of my office, the evening light casting long shadows across the floor. And I listened. I let the silence on my end of the line stretch out. A vast, empty space that she had to fill. The weight of 25 years of my own silence, of biting my tongue, of letting things slide, was now a tool. I held it, letting its pressure mount, forcing her to confront the void she had created between us. More sobs came, punctuated by desperate, gulping breaths for air. She was waiting for me to yell, to scold, to say, "I told you so." She was waiting for the father she thought she knew. But that man was gone. He had walked out of that wedding reception and had never come back. Finally, her voice tore through the static, broken and raw. "Dad, I'm so sorry." The words were almost unintelligible, mangled by her grief. I remained silent. Sorry for what? Sorry for getting caught. Sorry that her plan had backfired so spectacularly. I needed to hear it all. I was so horrible to you. She choked out, the words tumbling over each other in a desperate, chaotic rush. I read the spreadsheet. I read the comments. They're right. Everyone is right. I'm a monster. A spoiled, ungrateful monster. She started crying so hard she couldn't speak for a full minute. I leaned against my desk, the wood cool against my back, and stared out the window at the setting sun. The sky was painted in brutal strokes of orange and purple. The beautiful, violent end of a day. I always thought I deserved it. She finally managed to say, her voice barely a whisper, "I saw how hard you worked. But I didn't see it. It was just what you did. You were the dad. You provided. And I just took. It was like you were a machine. An ATM. I'd press the button, say, 'I love you,' give you a hug, and the money would come out. And I hated myself for it. I hated how easy it was." This was new. A crack in the facade I had never seen before. "When I met Carter's family," she continued, her voice trembling, "they were everything I wanted to be. Old money. Respected. They didn't have to work like you did. They just were. And I wanted that so badly. I wanted to be one of them. And you were a reminder of where I came from. Of the dirt under the fingernails, of the sweat. When you showed up at the wedding, in your suit, looking so proud, I couldn't stand it. Because you were real. And their whole world is built on pretending. I was so desperate to pretend with them, and I thought, if I could just push you away, just for that one night, I could finally become one of them. I was so stupid, so selfish, and so stupid." She confessed everything. The insecurity, the jealousy, the crushing weight of an entitled life she had done nothing to earn. She admitted that she had never truly loved Carter. She had loved the idea of him, the status he conferred. She admitted to turning her friends against me, to orchestrating the social media attack, to believing her own lies. It was a full and complete confession, not because she had found morality, but because she had been left with no other option. Her fabricated world had been obliterated, and only the ugly truth remained. She ended with a final, broken plea. "I was wrong, Dad. About everything. I was wrong." For the first time in my life, I heard those words from her, and the effect on me was profound and instantaneous. It wasn't triumph. There was no surge of victory, no satisfying sting of revenge. Instead, I felt a lifetime of tension release from my shoulders in one long, well-timed tension. Slow wave. The knot that had been permanently lodged in my stomach since that night at the wedding. A cold, hard ball of anger and grief simply dissolved. I closed my eyes. The rage was gone. The hurt was gone. All that was left was a vast, quiet, and weary peace. It was the catharsis of a battle finally won. But the realization that the cost had been immense. My heart rate, which had been a frantic drumbeat for days, slowed to a steady, calm rhythm. I was free. I took a deep breath before I finally spoke. My voice was raspy, Tired. I know you were. Isabella. She sobbed. A sound of relief that I had finally acknowledged her. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about that for a long time. Forgiveness felt like too simple a word. It was a bandage for a wound that needed to be rebuilt from the bone up. My love for you. The love a father has for his child. That's a part of me. It doesn't go away. I said slowly, choosing my words with the care of a man diffusing a bomb. But love and respect are two different things. You can't demand respect, Isabella. You can't inherit it. And you can't buy it. You have to earn it. And you, my daughter, have a long way to go to earn mine back. I'll do anything, she pleaded. Anything. I have nothing left. Carter's gone. His family is threatening to sue me for the gifts. My friends won't answer my calls. The landlord just posted an eviction notice on my door. The dealership called. They're repossessing it tomorrow. I'm at zero. Dad, I have nothing. This was it. The true bottom. The foundation upon which something new could either be built or left to rot. No, I said. You're not at zero. You're at the beginning. The beginning of a life you have to build for yourself. Brick by brick. Just like I did. I laid out my terms. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a directive. I'm going to wire $1,000 to your bank account. That's enough to check into a cheap, weekly rate hotel and buy groceries. I will not be paying for your condo. I will not be paying for your car. I will not be paying your credit card bills. You have 7 days. In those 7 days, you will find a job. I don't care if it's waiting tables or folding sweaters at the mall. You will get a paycheck. You will find a room to rent. And you will start supporting yourself. This is the only help you will get from me. The silence on her end was a different kind. Now, it was the silence of shock. The silence of someone who had expected a lecture, maybe, or a reluctant promise to fix things. But not this. Not a challenge. A week, she stammered. $1,000, Dad. I don't know how to do that. Then it's time you learn, I said, my voice hardening slightly. It had to. This was the most important lesson of her life. You don't deserve this help, Isabella. You don't deserve a single dollar of it after what you did. But everyone deserves one chance to truly grow up. To stand on their own 2 feet and face the consequences of their choices. This is your chance. Don't waste it. I could hear her quiet, shaky breaths. She was processing it. The finality of it. The end of the life she knew. The terrifying, uncertain beginning of another. Okay, she whispered. It was the smallest, most defeated sound I had ever heard from her. Okay, Dad. I'll check in with you in a week, I said. Good luck, Isabella. And with that, I ended the call. I set the phone down on my desk and walked over to the window. The sun had set, leaving only a faint, bruised purple glow on the horizon. My reflection stared back at me from the dark glass, a tired man with new lines around his eyes. Our relationship would never be the same. The easy, blind affection was gone forever. Replaced by a painful awareness, there would be scars, but maybe, just maybe, what grew back in its place could be something more honest. Something forged in the fire of this disaster. Built not on obligation and entitlement, but on a hard-earned, mutual respect. Only time would tell. My eyes fell upon the small, wrapped box still sitting on the corner of my desk. My great-grandfather's compass. I had forgotten about it. I picked it up, my clumsy fingers fumbling with the paper. I unwrapped it and held the heavy brass object in my palm. It felt solid. Real. A piece of history. I had intended to give it to her as a guide. A symbol to help her find her way in her new life. I realized now how foolish that was. I couldn't give her a direction. She had to find her own. And looking at the compass, its needle quivering slightly before settling north, I realized something else. All these years, my life's direction had been her. Every decision, every sacrifice, was pointed squarely at Isabella. In setting her adrift, I had, in a way, set myself adrift too. I had to find a new north. I had to learn how to be a father who loved his daughter enough to let her fail, to let her feel the cold, hard ground beneath her feet. I had spent 25 years building a castle for my princess, only to discover that what she really needed was not a fortress to hide in, but the tools to build a life of her own. And I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love a father can perform is to stop paving the road for his children, and instead, let them face the consequences of the bricks they themselves have thrown.